Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer, and welcome back to Lost in the Wasteland, where I get a chance to have a guest come on and we hear a little bit about their perspective on movies. And so I want to introduce my guest here, Aaron Dicer. Aaron, I'm going to give you a chance to introduce yourself and plug whatever you would like to plug.
Hey Shane, how's it going, man?
Doing pretty well.
You doing all right? Good, good. Yeah, thanks for having me on the show. I am a movie critic in Missouri. As far as the movie side of things go, I've been doing that for several years. My movie criticism started just as a hobby. It
Mhm.
honestly is probably still more hobby than profession. But yeah, it's one of those things that I just fell in love with, and eventually people started apparently caring about what I had to say about movies, and so that kind of transitioned into podcasting, YouTube, and then our local NBC affiliate. I am the movie critic for them, which allowed me entry into the Broadcast Film Critics Association, voting on the Critics' Choice Awards, those kind of things. So yeah, it's been a fun little hobby turned, mega hobby kind of thing. And then of course the website SiftPop.com, along with the podcast SiftPop Podcast, which you're very familiar with as a staff writer there. And appreciate all your work there and all the people who contribute to SiftPop. I've heard several of them have been on the show as well.
Mhm.
So yeah, so it's been good.
Awesome. And as somebody who also has a bit of a maybe not as mega hobby, but definitely mega hobby. I enjoy getting a chance to talk movies, and this has definitely been a lot of fun, especially during quarantine and through COVID, getting a chance to connect with people. And I
Sure.
myself, being from New Jersey, branching out a bit. We've had some writers throughout the Midwest, and I think the most interesting one was having Alice from SiftPop, who's from Australia. So completely different
Yeah,
days chatting. So I'm going to start things
that's
off
right.
with probably the question that I feel like most cinephiles probably get asked the most is what is your favorite film?
Yeah, and it's a question you learn how to answer really quickly, but it's also something I mean, there are different kind of movie fans, and there are
Yeah.
different kind of movie critics, but there is a large portion of the movie-loving universe that loves to rank things and figure out what they like more than others. And I am no different than that. I have been making a Fave 41 list of my all-time favorite 41 movies for going on 15 years. I update it every winter after for the new year. And for the last 5 years, 6 years, number one on that list is Singing in the Rain. And I think it's just, it's my favorite movie because it's just a joy to watch. It's just so much fun. There's just incredible work going on so many levels in that movie. There's great acting work, there's great dancing work, there's great singing work. It's hilarious at times, it's moving at times. It's always, there's so much joy in it. Yeah, I really dig that movie. So that's ended up at my number one favorite film, technically in my rankings. But
Awesome.
day to day things can change.
Of course. And I love my I love me a good musical as well. And
Mhm.
Singing in the Rain is definitely a lot of fun, very vibrant, has a lot of energy. And it's always fun watching movies about making movies and kind of hits a lot of those
Yeah,
different boxes. So
sure.
and I want to ask, how often do you feel like you have new movies enter your list each year when you're updating things?
Yeah, I generally will have one or two pop on the list. Now, I guess I should clarify. I have the Fave 41, but I technically have ranked for the last several years my favorite 100 movies,
Okay.
and then this year actually ranked my favorite 200 movies, expanded it to 200. But then I just kind of the 41 is just kind of like my just those are the ones that I kind of present to people. I actually have a wall full of commissioned art for all the movies in my 41. That there's like Soul entered my Fave 41 this year. So One Night in Miami was close,
Hmm.
but didn't quite get into the 41, but was in my top 100, I think. So yeah, every year the couple enter. it's not surprising to see them then drop a few for, like a few years as kind of recency bias wears off, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. I'm very aware of my biases. I don't have any problem with them. I think it's just a normal part of being human is, you like certain things and you're more apt to like certain things. I became a Pixar fan pretty early, and I know I've got a huge Pixar bias. I love their movies and I'm more apt to love their movies. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think it's important to be aware of it. But anyhow, so yeah, a couple will kind of jump in there on a
Awesome.
year-to-year basis.
I know, and this will kind of segue a bit into my next question, but I know as someone who grew up watching Pixar movies, I definitely have that connection with, like, if there's a Pixar movie coming out, like that's something special.
It is.
And
Yeah.
getting a chance to see them, and Soul was definitely a nice, I guess, little Christmas present to
Yeah.
have from Disney Plus this past year.
Yeah,
And
it's been interesting to see some of the conversation around why the Pixar movies are just dropping on Disney Plus for free when like all their other big movies are coming with like the premium access $30 fee. And I guess some people at Pixar, a rumor is some people at Pixar have been like, "What is wrong with us? Like, why are like, why are you just giving our stuff away for free?" But it was, yeah, it was a nice Christmas present.
yeah, I've been noticing those articles popping up the past couple of
Yeah,
days specifically about that. And I don't know, maybe Disney's like, maybe that's the future of Pixar is to
yeah,
sell Disney Plus.
could be. I don't know.
And we know I don't work at Disney, so I have no idea. So,
Yeah.
but to kind of segue into my next question, so Aaron, what's your earliest memory of going to the movies?
I have a specific answer for this question that differs from most people.
Okay.
It was May 10th, 1996. I was on the verge of my 21st birthday. I was in college and grew up in a home where you didn't go to the movies. It just
Mhm.
wasn't allowed, wasn't something you did. It wasn't something I ever fought against. We would still watch movies on VHS or whatever the case may be, TV, watch movies on TV. So, I didn't miss out on Star Wars or, those kind of things growing up. But I just watched them on TV. It was interesting once, if, physical media kind of entered my life to see movies, not the TV version. Like, and I don't even just mean content. I mean, the idea of how they were framed, how they were different,
Mhm.
whole scenes that were cut for TV, for timing reasons or whatever. So that was always interesting. But yeah, no, Twister was my very first movie in
Okay.
the theater in May of '96, and it blew my mind. And I remember walking out and just being like, "Oh, I get it now." The main thing I remember thinking was, in this may be specifically about the movie Twister too,
Mhm.
was just how blown away by the sound I was. Just the sound design, the amazing speakers and surround, and I forget what the main sound thing was. There was probably some sort of Dolby surround sound that was in theaters then. Not like Dolby Atmos now or those kind of things that hadn't been invented yet, but it didn't. It was just I'd never heard anything like that.
Yeah.
And then the huge screen and just how beautiful it was, and so yeah, going to the movies was then something I was very excited to do after that.
And I definitely understand, like, I, as a kid, remembering, like, it was more of, like, a special occasion. It's like, maybe going to the movies, like, once or twice a year
Yeah,
kinda thing.
yeah,
Wasn't until after college where I had a full-time job, I'm like, "I have my own money, I could go whenever I want,"
right,
and kind of thing, and going to the movies so much,
yeah.
but it's
Yeah,
a
and
it
I want to be clear. I literally never saw a movie in a theater until
yeah,
May of 1996. I just wasn't taken as a kid or anything. But yeah, yeah, that was the day.
and I imagine that was a very, like, different kind of experience, especially appreciating it as an adult because,
Hmm.
like, I vaguely recall my first experience going to the movies, but obviously, like, I was, like, 4 years old, so I
Right. I have a
don't
you
really
know,
remember it.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Seeing Space Jam in, like, the 3rd row of
Nice.
the theater. But I know that talking about, like, the actual theater experience and how different it is than watching it on a TV, and, like, speaking of Dolby and, like, the actual Dolby cinemas that they have at, like, AMC's and stuff like
Hmm.
that, it's like, when you're sitting there, and you're watching Mission Impossible Fallout, and you feel like you're actually driving through Paris and having cars flying by you,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
it's a completely different experience.
Yep.
Now, Aaron, do you have a particular favorite genre of film?
Not really. Um, Genre is always interesting to me. I get that it's useful. You know,
Mhm.
categories can be very useful to how we think about things. But I don't find it very instructive. And I get even a little bit annoyed with genre police arguments where it's like, that's not a horror movie, that's a suspense movie, or, why won't you call it a horror movie, or, whatever the case may be, or, like Baby Driver is a good example. That's a musical. You could put that in the musical genre. It's got, things happening in environment that match up with the music, behind it, but does that matter that you would put it in that genre? Or, so I think it gives us an interesting place to talk about film, but it's never something I found really instructive. And that may also be because I like so many different kinds of movies, too, dramas, musicals, comedies, whatever you want to call them. But there's such a Venn diagram in every movie of so many different genres that, I don't find it extremely instructive.
Well, and that's a very interesting perspective too to have on it, and probably makes things easier to just go in and enjoy a movie
Sure.
because you don't have because like you have an expectation that
Yeah.
you're like, I'm going into a horror movie, but what does that really mean for your experience for it?
Yeah.
Because it could just be a bunch of jump scares, or it
Sure.
could be something that disturbs you to the core, and you're just like, what the hell did I just watch?
Yeah,
And
if you're talking to somebody about Groundhog Day, what genre do you tell them that is? Do you say comedy? Certainly, right? It's Bill Murray. It's really funny. Do you say sci-fi? Maybe, it's one of those things that I have to understand for myself why it matters. And it matters in the same way that like the style of editing I preferred matters. Like it doesn't have to be such a defined thing. It's just I know it when I see it. I like to laugh. I like to think, but I don't know what that means as far as genre technically. To put it in a category.
exactly, and I feel like if the film's doing what it's trying to accomplish, and it affects you, it's doing its job. So
Yep, I agree.
now, in terms of filmmakers, do you have a
Mhm.
particular favorite filmmaker?
I have several names I could give.
Yeah.
Hitchcock is probably who I fell in love with movies watching. My mom enjoyed Hitchcock stuff and introduced me to Hitchcock stuff. And I was really just impressed by the creativity of
Mhm.
how you can use the camera, how you can use the visuals, the idea, his ideas on, you should be able to mute the movie and still understand it perfectly. That was a big Hitchcock thing, was like, even
Mhm.
if you took out all the sound, which we're not going to do because it's helpful and it's beneficial and it's, part of the experience, but you should be able to understand even if you didn't hear a single thing. The visuals should tell the story. Which is great, and I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. You hear people talk about the laziness of like narration or something. Well, guess what? Narration doesn't work if you turn off the sound. Because the visuals aren't telling you the story. So yeah, I like Hitchcock. I liked his ideas of suspense. I think he was one of the first directors to really understand audience psychology,
Mhm.
and to mess around with that. So yeah, Hitchcock is an easy answer. Modern directors, especially like really recent directors, Damien Chazelle has really impressed me. Whiplash, of course, is widely considered an incredible film. But even beyond that, La La Land, I love. First Man, I think is incredible. Way underrated. That movie is way underrated. I don't know if it just when it came out or what people weren't in the mood for it or whatever, but and that is a good movie. So yeah, I like Chazelle, Coogler, as far as some of the new ones. And then I mentioned Baby Driver, and I like the Cornetto trilogy and
Mhm.
all the Edgar Wright stuff. So probably mention him as well.
Yeah. I One of my favorite experiences going to the movies was actually getting to see Vertigo in theaters and experiencing that on a big screen. And
Hmm.
I remember first becoming introduced to Hitchcock in a cinema class in high school,
Yeah.
and getting a chance to see some of his films. And then we had a project, we had to go search out one of his other films we didn't watch in class and write a paper on it. I remember going to the library and renting North by Northwest and watching
Yeah.
it for the first time. And Hitchcock certainly knew how to play around with audiences, set
Hmm.
you up. And it's interesting because thinking about genres, what's Psycho for the first 30 some odd minutes of that
Hmm.
movie?
Yeah.
Feels like a completely different film.
Yeah.
Or The Birds. For half of the film, it's setting up with it seems like a romance. And then bam, then you're terrified because of all the birds
Hmm.
attacking you.
Yeah.
And Edgar Wright's definitely one of the more modern directors that I enjoy, and I love the Cornetto trilogy a lot.
Yeah.
And I know I always look forward to when his films come out.
For
This
sure.
man with Chazelle, I don't know, that completely just arrived and then
Hmm.
disappeared. And
Yeah.
it's so interesting because he is a really talented director.
Yeah.
And I think I didn't get to see Whiplash in theaters, but I did see La La Land, and I was definitely blown away with that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know how you would ever be my age and not have been influenced by Spielberg. Like, I mean, he's just over time one of the most incredible filmmakers. So, it's a little bit of a pat answer, but it's true.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too, because just because he's popular and has made so many famous movies, like he's an incredible filmmaker and he's still doing it, which I think is really impressive too. Now, do you have particular actors or actresses that really draw you in?
I, yes, but what's interesting is I don't keep track in my mind so much of like my favorite actors, whether they
Mhm.
be male or female. It's one of those things where I know like there are certain performances that amaze me, and I could say Daniel Day-Lewis because he's always incredible. I could say Meryl Streep because she's always incredible. Um, but then there are also those that I just think are so charismatic, Harrison Ford or Ryan Gosling even, or just such uh, um, just a presence, kind of the movie star
Yeah.
idea presence. I think if I had to land, if I was forced to land, I'd probably say Jim Carrey. And I know that's a weird answer. Um, I think somehow he is one of our most famous and appreciated actors of all time, and yet still somehow underrated. I don't know how you can watch Man on the Moon and just go, that guy's not special. You know what I mean? Like I don't understand how he did that. The first glimmer of something beyond stretchy face guy
Yeah.
for me was Liar Liar, which is still in that run of like his like extreme comedies, that kind of stuff, and there's stretchy face stuff in there, but there's also emotional beats in that movie that he really pulls off, and I was like,
Mhm.
oh, okay. You can go a little bit deeper, and then of course Cable Guy's right in that run too, and that's got a little bit of darkness to it that you hadn't seen from him before. um so yeah, and then he hits with Truman Show, and it's just like, okay, you're one of my favorites of all time, and he's kind
Yeah.
of he's kind of stayed in that place for me through Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, just doing such incredible work. And it was great to see him back to like insane comedy chops in Sonic recently. I just thought
Yeah.
he was incredible in that movie. So yeah, just for span of career and that kind of thing, I'm a huge Jim Carrey fan.
Yeah, I definitely grew up watching a lot of Jim Carrey movies as a
Yeah.
kid. And I remember seeing Truman Show for the first time and absolutely loving that. And obviously getting a very different perspective on Jim Carrey. And have you watched Kidding? This,
Yes, the TV show, the
yeah.
Michelle Gondry TV show, where yeah, it's incredible.
And I was so disappointed when they canceled that because
Yeah.
that's a very well, it's a very different expectation, I feel like, for Jim Carrey when you do think about like this is the guy who made Dumb and Dumber, Ace
Hmm.
Ventura, and also it's like this is like Mr. Rogers. That show is so
Yeah.
dark and
Yeah.
definitely takes a very interesting perspective with things. And then I was so happy when I wound up seeing Sonic last year and I loved him every second he was on screen. I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
this is Jim Carrey that I remember as a kid
Yeah,
watching these
totally.
kinds of films, and I look forward to seeing him as Robotnik again
Yeah,
in
definitely.
Sonic. So, and
Uh,
so, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say also, big shout out to Emma Stone. Speaking of La La Land,
Mhm.
she's always really impressed me. Some really great and varied performances from her. She's coming up in Cruella, right? Is that her next
Yes,
thing that's coming out? So that'll be interesting as well. But
which I
yeah,
think that's
she's
still
an
coming out
actor I
right
really
now.
liked.
So,
Yeah, yeah.
something to look forward to. Um,
Oh, and I have to mention Will Smith. Will Smith as well has always really impressed me, and
mhm.
has a long and really interesting career.
He
So
certainly does, and he's definitely one of the most charismatic actors out there. And
yeah.
I remember, which I think it made it even harder to watch, was when I saw After Earth in theaters and
Hmm.
realizing, like, why would you have this extremely charismatic actor just sit
Yeah.
there and like do nothing this whole entire movie?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about M. Night Shyamalan for a while, shall we?
We certainly can.
I love M. Night. He's made my least favorite movie of all time, and also several of my favorite movies of all time. So it's interesting when the same person can do that. But,
It's crazy because I remember I had a very special experience with watching one of his films for the first time because when I was a kid, I started being a part of one of those like DVD clubs, and like you
uh-huh.
did it through the mail and
Yeah,
everything.
totally.
And the first monthly movie that I got was Signs.
Hmm.
And like I was like 11 probably. Did not
Nice.
terrified me. I don't handle horror very well. I get scared so easy.
Yeah.
And I remember as a kid watching that just terrifying me. But I love Unbreakable, Sixth Sense, Signs, and then yes, there's films that just how how did this get
I defend more of his films than most.
Mhm,
I am an adamant The Village defender.
mhm,
I think there's a lot of great stuff in that movie, and I think that movie was I think it was unfairly maligned because of its twists.
mhm.
Shyamalan had become so known for twists, and there's two major twists in that movie. And so many people were like, I knew the twist going into it. It's like, yeah, so what about the story? Like, did you enjoy the ride?
Yeah.
Like, did you enjoy what you saw? What did you feel the suspense? Like, and so that movie was one of those where it was like, I felt like people were trying to be smarter than the movie, and the movie's just out there going, I'm telling a story, guys. I'm not trying
Yeah.
to be smarter than you. Like, and I also maybe not quite as adamantly, but I also defend Lady in the Water. I really like Lady in the Water. So
That one I haven't seen, but I remember watching The Village like years after
mhm.
it came out. And like I knew the twist and everything, and I watched it, I'm like, why do people get so upset about this? And
I don't know.
I didn't get it because I thought it was a really strong film and I
I think it's
enjoyed it
really
quite a
strong. Yeah.
bit. And I remember when The Visit came out and I watched it, I'm like, okay, okay. And then
Yeah.
Split came out.
Yeah.
And I was the only one who went to go see Split in the theater in my group that had seen Unbreakable before.
And that music
And
comes in at the end and it blows your mind. Yeah.
I'm like, "What?"
Hmm.
And then I I had been fully back up on the hype train of Shyamalan when Glass came out.
Hmm.
And, like, I only watched it the once in the theater, but I remember sitting there and just being like, "What did I just watch?"
He definitely made the movie he wanted to make with Glass. I don't think it's very good. I can find stuff to enjoy about it.
Mhm.
That is the story he wanted to tell. I don't think he was aware how um, trivial the story he wanted to tell would seem to most people. Like he's making big revelations about stuff about the world that we've lived in for many, many. He's trying to do things with social media and hero worship and those kind of things that we've seen many pieces of pop culture
Yeah.
already deal with in the exact kind of same way. But I don't mind some of the big choices in Glass, but yeah, overall it's not great.
It's funny when the biggest villain of the movie turned out to be a puddle.
Yeah. Yeah. See, that is one choice I don't mind. I totally get why he's doing that. Like that is his point. That is the story he's trying to tell, is about, strengths and weaknesses, and,
Yeah.
heroes and villains, and, how do we take those for granted? How do we, so I totally get why he's going there. I also totally get why people think it's ridiculous. So yeah, I can see both.
And it's also been interesting watching Servant on Apple TV Plus.
Yeah.
He actually directs, I think he's directed like 4.
He's directed a few. His daughter's directed and written a few too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But you know what? When his movies come out, I'm still going to see them. So you know what?
Totally.
That's at the end. Now, Aaron, do you have a particular film that you feel like you could watch every day? It's one of those kinds of films for you.
Yeah. I could probably name for you 200 films I feel like I could watch every day. I love movies. In fact, that is the ethos of how I choose my favorite movies is, do I want to throw it in the movie? Do I want to throw it in the, Blu-ray player right now? If I was choosing between these two movies, which one am I more excited to watch right now? And so that is kind of what I keep in mind. Now, that's not fair sometimes to darker movies or movies that you only want to watch once. And I try to keep that in mind. I do have those movies on my list. I think like Schindler's List is, in my top 100. I think it's even my top 50. Those kind of movies. And that's not necessarily when I'm going to be like, oh yeah, let's watch Schindler's List, or, I want to watch that every day. So, I am aware of the difference, but for the most part, that is what drives me, is the joy of, I want to see this again. So Singing in the Rain, same answer. Stuff like What About Bob? I could watch that movie every day. So funny. So yeah, definitely.
And it's interesting because most people that I know have you have to be in a certain mood to watch certain movies. And it's so interesting because my girlfriend's definitely that way. She's like, I can't watch anything sad or intense right now. And I'm just like, I could watch anything.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
And I could throw in a very intense or scary or emotional film right now. Or, sometimes you just want to throw in something and have a laugh. I could throw The Big Lebowski in and quote that movie from start to finish.
Sure.
Any day, and just enjoy every moment of it.
Yep.
Now, Aaron, do you have a particular film that you feel like you connect to in a stronger way because it relates to another interest of yours?
Yeah. Rounders. I love poker.
Okay.
And that's obviously about poker, and really understands poker in a way that especially movies around that time wouldn't necessarily have understood it. That was pre kind of poker boom. I mean, it was right about as the poker boom was about to happen with Chris Moneymaker and the World Series and that kind of stuff. But Rounders is one. Any basketball movie. I love basketball. So any basketball movie is going to, have a leg up. Hoosiers. It's always been one of my favorites. It's been interesting looking back at Hoosiers in more of a racially sensitive way, and seeing some of kind of the racial bias in that movie that I would have never recognized when I was growing up, That's one of my favorite things about movies too, is they allow us to continue to examine ourselves even over time. And I love that. But I still think it's a great movie. So movies like that deal with, basketball or poker. Those were, some of the examples I thought of.
Yeah, I definitely, when thinking about that question and when I came up with that question, I know a big one that popped in my head is because baseball. And also, as recording this on April 1st is a very special day, first day of baseball, so I'm excited. And I love watching Major League, watching A League of Their Own. Just love my baseball movies. Yeah. And I feel like if you're a sports fan, you definitely have that special connection to watching a sports movie.
As a Detroit Tigers fan, For Love of the Game has always been one of my favorite baseball movies since Costner throws a perfect game for the Tigers. So that's fun.
Yeah, as a recording this, they were winning today.
Are they? Imagine that. They haven't done that in a while. So
yeah, I think Miguel Cabrera hit a home run off of Shane Bieber.
Hey, if Mickey wants to come back to like, Mickey of 5 years ago, I'm all for it.
As a Diamondbacks fan, I have very little expectation going into this season, but
Yeah.
it is what it is. I also from New Jersey. I grew up like 10 minutes from Philly. So like I feel like I kind of grew up appreciating the
Hmm.
Phillies since basically they were the only team that I really got to watch in person
Right.
over there. So,
Yeah.
my brother's sitting there watching the Phillies game right now.
Hmm.
But do you have a particular movie character that you feel like you connect with on a personal level?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, Nothing I can think of right offhand.
Mhm.
Um, I think part of the beauty of movies is the ability to have you connect and empathize with people who aren't you.
Yep.
And that's what I really love. I think of recently Roma. That was, I mean, it's one of my favorite movies ever. I think I've currently got it at my 18th favorite of all time. And it is a world that I am not experienced with. I have not experienced. But man, do you feel Quran's connection to that material, and you
Yeah.
just live it with them and with her, and so that's what I love. That the idea of that is not me. I don't connect to it personally because I know it or I experience it. I connect to it personally, even though I haven't known it or experienced it. So yeah, that Roma would probably be an example.
You know, you have a special film when a shot of a drain with just like soap going down. It's just like a
Yeah,
beautiful, beautiful thing.
yeah, and a reflection of a distant plane in the air, and just kind of this idea that the world goes on around us and is not necessarily about us, and that there are
Mhm.
people on that plane who have no idea what this woman is going through. And like, it's just, yeah, that movie is so intricate and beautiful. Yeah, I could talk about Roma all day.
Yeah, I was glad that I got to see that in the theater.
Yeah.
And definitely, and that's the thing too, because with so many films coming out on streaming services now, and hoping that at least some of those films get to see in a theater, it's a special moment when you see The Irishman for 3.5 hours in a theater.
Hmm.
That
Yeah.
that was a fun experience going to the movie.
Yeah.
Now, do you have a particular film that you feel like would surprise people that you love this film?
Hmm. Yeah, usually that's going to be like darker movies that deal with darker subject matter. Recently, I think of like The Relic. I didn't like that movie for about 75% of the movie. And then when it hit me more head on with its metaphor and kind of what it was doing, I kind of fell in love with it. So that's,
Mhm.
I think that's a surprise for people who kind of see me as the, Singing in the Rain, Pixar,
Yeah.
um, bright and colorful kind of guy. So yeah, something like that would probably fit in that category. The Revenant is a movie I like really, really love that seems to surprise people. I just think it's an incredible filmmaking, just incredible filmmaking.
It absolutely is. And I remember watching Relic last year, and something about how that film ended hit me so profoundly. I'm just
Oh, of
like,
course. Yeah.
I was blown away by that. I think that made my top 20 last year.
Nice.
I loved that film. And I think The Revenant might have been one of my most exhausting movie going
I understand that.
experience.
No, I totally get that.
And it's just like, what else can this movie do to this man?
Hmm. Yeah.
And honestly, at that point, it's just like, Leo, what you went through, here's your
Mm.
Oscar.
Yeah, totally.
But and that was a very interesting year for film for me because I think that's probably going to be the Oscars show that I remember the most because one of my favorite films of all time is Mad Max Fury Road.
Hmm.
And when they announced Best Director, I was pulling so hard for George Miller to win that.
Yeah.
And of course, 3-2-1 for The Revenant, which I'm like, can't even be mad at that though. And
Yeah,
you're just
it's hard.
like, I watched this movie. I know how amazing this movie was. So
Didn't he shoot with all natural light in that movie?
He sure did.
Oh, that's just, it's mind blowing how beautiful that movie is. And
It
to have
is.
handcuffed yourself in that way, that's just incredible.
I remember one shot in it when I think it was Donald Gleason's on a horse and a torch is up in the woods at night. And it's just like, this is beautiful. This is
Yeah.
absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
And what the hell is Tom Hardy thinking? Between both that and Fury Road.
Yeah.
Oh man, he's committed because
It
apparently
is.
neither of those shoots were very enjoyable.
No, I bet not.
But now I have one more question for you, Aaron. And
Sure.
that question is, what do you love most about movies?
For me, probably the way they make me think. I get most excited about movies when I'm leaving Gone Baby Gone and just going, oh, what would I do? Like, that's what a moral conundrum. How would I think through that? Or
Mhm.
when I leave Bad Times at the El Royale and I'm like, oh, that character's face was specifically half mauled by shotgun and half pure for a reason, that like all the themes, and and then the coin flip and the way the hotel was divided, and like when he lands, he's land right on the dividing line. And I just when I start to when a movie makes me think more, I think that's what I love most about movies, is walking away from them and continuing to ponder them and consider them and think about them.
And I appreciate you bringing up Bad Times at the El Royale because I absolutely love that
It's
movie. And
so good. Drew Goddard is so smart. Oh, I love that movie so much.
it upset me because I think I saw that with a group of four other people, and everyone else is like, and I'm like, what do you mean? I was like walking out, I'm like, this movie. Also,
Yeah,
love me some Jeff Bridges.
yeah,
Love me some
totally.
Jeff Bridges. Now, Aaron, I like to wrap up the show by having my guest ask me a question.
Oh,
So,
okay.
do you have a question that you would like me to answer?
If you were to direct a movie, if you were to direct a film, what is the heart of the story you would want to tell? Like, what is the main message you would want to get across with a movie if you directed it?
That's definitely one of the best questions that I've been asked all year, and I appreciate that. Um, so honestly, the first thing that pops into my head is because like I know most probably fans of film have come up with ideas for movies, and like I've played around writing scripts, and I have a story that if I were ever to get a chance to like make a film, it would be this one. And definitely at the heart of it is the ideas of violence and where because it's so interesting because like I love action movies. I've watched action movies my whole entire life. But which is funny because as a person, I'm very adverse to violence and really taking on and realizing what does violence really accomplish and what does that do to a person
Mhm.
whose life becomes engulfed in violence.
Yeah.
Because like there's so many stories of like this person who wants to put it behind them and get away from things and put that life behind them, but they just get pulled back in, the John Wicks of the world.
Hmm.
Kill that man's dog and he's going to literally murder everyone.
Right.
But I feel like that, like the themes of what violence and hate really do to someone
Hmm.
and how they can take somebody and morph them into somebody that they wouldn't want to be. And
Yeah.
because at least with the ideas that I had for my story was very much that was the core of it.
Nice.
The interesting thing was like the whole entire thing was inspired by Mad Max because like that's a world that I hope we never live in.
Yeah.
But if we
I,
did,
our culture likes dystopia in its stories. And I think because it offers a nice background to tell some interesting stories and to do some interesting things with thematics and those kind of things. Um, I don't know. I think utopia is just as possible an outcome as dystopia. I think if we are smart and careful with our technology and how we treat each other, we could live in a post-scarcity society where the idea of how you eat, how you survive, how you live isn't an issue for anyone because we have such resource in our technology to be able to do that. I think it's good to keep that optimism and that positive option out there as much as our culture is like, nope, it's all going to be dystopia. The world will crumble. We will all be warring factions. So,
leather clad.
Yeah.
Right. Fighting over gasoline.
Yeah, exactly.
Or Simian uprising, the Robo uprising, something or other. I'm definitely a robophobe, and my biggest fear is Skynet's going to actually happen.
See, here's the thing. If you want to talk, we can talk about this. If you want to talk about this, here's the thing. You can't fear Skynet, and here's the reason. It's coming, no matter what.
Yes.
It's going to happen. The only way it doesn't happen is if we destroy ourselves before it happens. But within the next probably 30 to 50 years, AI will become so complex that it will appear to be thinking for itself, making decisions, those kind of things, I believe. But you can't fear it. You just have to understand we have to do our best to help the coin flip land on our friend instead of our enemy. And honestly, it could go either way. If you read some of the big thinkers on this, that is a common theme, is when the name of just slipped my mind, the moment happens where AI becomes that smart, the singularity. When we reach the singularity, it will either be the best thing that ever happened to humanity or the worst thing that ever happened to humanity. We'll either be extinct within a month or we will live forever. Like that's genuinely, like it will either solve all of our problems or just kill us all. So I vote for the first.
I appreciate that. And because it's like and that's an interesting thing too, because like I love Terminator, I love Ex Machina, and it's so interesting because I remember watching Her for the first time and like being afraid of it. Like I hated the movie the first time I watched it because I'm like, no, I do not like this.
Right.
I do not approve of this. And like now I can watch and appreciate it for what it's trying to say and like get that edge off watching it.
Yeah.
And then, we could wind up like Wall-E, and we just revert back to giant babies.
That's right.
Don't have to do anything. True. But I appreciated that question. That was a really good question. So, good. But I guess wrapping things up, Aaron, if you want to like plug anything where people can find you, check out your reviews, anything like that, and then we'll wrap up.
Go to SiftPop.com, right? Like there's lots of fun stuff going on there. SiftPop is a place. I was just talking to somebody recently. The ethos there is for movie lovers to find each other and to bring about community. If you're looking for a place to be, to like make as a career as a movie writer, that's not what SiftPop is. SiftPop is kind of a launching pad. That's how I've always seen it, is the idea of, you thought, what would it be like to be a movie reviewer? And I have gained a limited audience in my time on this earth, and there's there are people who seem to go to the site, and so it's a place where I hope people can kind of get their feet underneath them and say, yeah, this one way or another, I don't want to do this. It's more work than I thought, or I'm not as good at it as I want to be, or yeah, I'm loving this. This is really fun. I want to keep doing this. And for me, it's just, I want to be able to use whatever little audience exposure that I bring to help people who love movies and want to talk about movies find an audience to kind of get their feet underneath them and see if it's something they want to do. So, I mean, if you're interested in writing, let us know. And if you're just interested in movie and want to read the reviews and the articles, there's some really good stuff going on there. Just go to SiftPop.com. And we've got our Oscars contest coming up. So you can make your Oscar picks and tune in for our live broadcast and see how you do.
Awesome. And as one of the writers at SiftPop, I think it's great. It's been such a great
Thanks, man.
opportunity for me. And especially since I've had my YouTube channel now since August 2016, way back when I recorded myself at night with no lighting on my webcam talking about Sausage Party.
You learn a lot, don't you? Yeah.
And getting a chance to do writing for the first time, and it's a different thing, and it's been such a great opportunity. And you could go check out my reviews and read my excessive amount of rhetorical questions. So I will make you I'll make you think about questions while reading my reviews. But Aaron, thank you so much for taking time to come on and chat with me about movies. And it's always fun getting perspectives. So, and thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.